Hello, my name is Oshanna Powell, and I'll be giving a persuasive speech on how cheaper electric can be achieved on the macro level by the usage of wind turbines. Now, my very first PowerPoint presentation is going to be that of a depiction of the price cost of electricity. If you take a look here at the top, it gives you the cents per kilowatt hour. See there? Now that's starting from 8 cents in 1998 and rises all the way up to about 12 cents in 2008. Now, further down the line, it's projected in 2009 to 2010 to as high as 13 cents per hour. Now, in the lower part of the diagram, like these red indications here, what these are indicating is the annual growth in percentage per year. Now, see, in 1998, there's a 2% increase. Now, the highest level of increase was in the year 2006, which was relatively high at 10.3%. Now, the projected amount in 2009 and 2010 is going to be from the year 2008 going higher than 5%, and then again in 2010 it's going to go up another 2%. That's quite a predicament for the American public considering our lower economy. It's been quite an issue for us recently. So my next slide is going to speak about the facts of electricity creation. The two most common ways to currently produce electricity are by the burning of fossil fuels and of nuclear fission. Most ways have the same concept employed to create electricity. They both create steam which propels the turbine. The friction the turbine produces is kinetic energy, which is then converted into electricity via the generator. How electricity is created. I'm going to show you another slide which I have a depiction of how electricity is created. Now, this is by means of nuclear fission. If you take a note here, see these 3 black lines? Those would be rods of uranium. Now, what they do when they create nuclear fission is they take those rods of uranium and they're basically just an atom of uranium, and they split that. When they split that, that causes nuclear fission. Picture like a soda, when it bubbles up, it's fizzing. That's sort of like what nuclear fission is. It's the fizzing of the nuclear atom being split. It creates a gas. And what happens with that gas, or steam if you will, is it travels out of the boiler here. I apologize, I need to get this better on my screen. It travels out of the boiler into the steam converter, which is right here, and that steam converter comes over here, comes down into the wind turbine, spinning it, thereby going into the generator, creating kinetic energy, which is then turned into electricity. A lot of times what they do in order to keep the uranium cool, since it is very volatile in heat, is that they take water and they circulate it throughout the heating rods to make sure that it stays cool, and then they disperse it back out amongst the ocean water. Now, my next slide is going to be that of the pros and cons of nuclear fission. One of the pros of nuclear fission is that it does not produce carbon emissions. That's the great thing about it. Most of the time, people, when they think of power plants, they think, oh, maybe this is not the best source of electricity. Actually, it can be quite beneficial when used properly. Very little uranium is needed to produce massive amounts of energy. One of the most interesting notes is that just one molecule of uranium can be used for many, many months of electricity. Just one small little bit, that's how potent it is. Now, the waste it produces is small, generally speaking, because it is small, and it is a reliable source of electricity. We've been using it for many, many years. The bad part, the cons of nuclear fission, is that uranium has to be excavated from the ground. That can be bad for our Earth, and also it's not great for any part of the environment when we're digging up the ground. Now, uranium used to produce nuclear power is not renewable, so when we've dug up as much as we can of the uranium out of the ground, that's it, and we have to find a new source. That's rather unfortunate. And the worst problem of uranium is, even though you can use small little molecules of uranium to power our power plants, the byproduct is radioactive waste that is lethally dangerous for months, up to 10,000 years, depending upon its potency. So that is a very large problem with having uranium as a means of electricity. Now, another way to use it is by the burning of fossil fuels. I'm now going to show you another diagram on how electricity is created by the burning of fossil fuels. Notice here I can get that there. It's a solid fuel. Consider if we were to use coal as a solid fuel. What would you do? You would put it here in this boiler, and you would boil that coal. When you boiled that coal, it would produce a steam, and the steam would come up, and it would spin the wind turbine. And as it spun the wind turbine, it would then spin the generator, which creates kinetic energy that is turned into electricity. Now, one of the things that's a problem with the fossil fuel is, as you can see in my photo diagram, it shows that the hydrogen gas separator puts out environmental gases that are very bad for Mother Earth. It's the greenhouse gases that most people complain about. One of the good things, though, is that it is capable of being recycled. You can recycle coal for a few times of rotation, so it can be a good source of electricity. Now, the pros and cons of fossil fuels being used as a means of electricity. Large amounts of electricity can be created from fossil fuels when prices are conducive with cost effectiveness, meaning just like gas prices, they fluctuate. You never know if they're going to be high or low. Same problem with fossil fuels such as coal or natural gases, such like that. Now, fossil fuels are also efficient. We know that they work. We've been using them for many years, just like using uranium in power plants. These types of plants can also be built anywhere. Power plants, you have to be more specific, because if we were to have an issue like a leak, they would be extraordinarily dangerous to anyone that came in contact with them, unlike the fossil fuel burning plants. Now, the bad part about fossil fuel burning plants is the pollution, and it's the main hazard of them. Fossil fuels are not always cost effective due to fluctuations, so that could be bad as well, because if they continue to go the way that they are, with the economy the way it is, it's just not cost effective for us to continue using that source of electricity. Also, when they're mined, it can be a dangerous procedure. It can be dangerous for the workers, and it can also just be dangerous for our environment at the same time. Now, my next one is, how's electricity created by the use of a wind turbine? I'm going to show you my diagram here. Now, this diagram shows of a wind turbine. That's it right here. You can see the blades. Now, what those blades do is they spin, and as they rotate, because of the air pushing them, they're connected to a shaft. And as that shaft spins, let me put this better on the screen. And as that shaft spins, it turns a gearbox, and that gearbox creates a kinetic energy, which is then stored in the generator. The generator then converts it into mechanical energy, which is converted. There we are. See where it says number 3 at? That's where it's converted at, right there, into high voltage, and the high voltage then transforms it into electricity that's dispersed amongst the power grid. And that is the amazing part of wind turbines usage in the generation of electricity. Now, the pros and cons of wind turbines is that the pro is wind turbines are a renewable resource that does not pollute. You never have to worry about it creating any greenhouse gases, and there are no radioactivity byproducts of greenhouse gases, of wind turbines. It is also a domestic resource that would help produce jobs and be economically beneficial, very much so, as well as the use of wind energy on a long-term basis would help save a lot of money, and in our economic slump, both getting jobs and saving money could without a doubt help all of us. Now, wind power generators have a high startup cost, which initially than fossil fuel plants. That is rather unfortunate, but a lot of times anything that's worth having isn't free, and it's not easy to have. So there are considerations to take into place as we're considering wind turbines as a source of electricity. Now, wind energy is not as reliable as conventional methods, so that's another problem that we'd have to take into consideration when actually using wind turbines as our source. But the ability for cheaper electric, nuclear fission, and fossil fuel plants should be used in conjunction with turbines for a more cost-effective method of procuring electricity. You see, wind turbines can be used as the primary source for electricity. The only downfall is reliability of the wind. Therefore, secondary sources would be used, such as fossil fuels and nuclear power plants, to make up the difference. Hence, reliability, less pollution, and more cost-effectiveness. Bottom line, cheaper electric. Now, here are the future